Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to today's webinar on CITB's new network funding. For those who don't know me, my name's Kellyanne and I work in the marketing department at UKATA. So just before we begin, I just want to go through a few housekeeping points just to help ensure that everything runs smoothly. So just to minimise the background noise, all attendees that I will be muting you. It's nothing personal. However, I do encourage you to engage with us, and you'll see a Q&A box within the meeting. So please put all your questions in there. At the end of it, we will address them during the Q&A session. So thanks again for joining us today. I do hope you find this webinar beneficial. So without further ado, over to you, Alex.
Thank you very much. And yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. I hope you do find it beneficial. I'm just going to share my screen. Just before we do start, is the chat open?
The Q&A is open. The chat should be.
Okay, perfect. Can everybody see that on my screen?
Yeah, chat is open. We're winning.
Yeah, perfect. Just before we start, just so I can get an idea of who's in the room. If you are a training provider, can you put 1 in the chat? And if you're an employer, can you put 2? Just so we can get an idea of who's in the room. So we've got some training providers, okay. All training providers. Okay, somebody said they can't see my screen. Can anybody else see it?
I can definitely see your screen, Alex. Let's have a look.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Right, okay. So we've got some, by the look of it, majority training providers, not a problem. So just to let you know, this presentation it is tailored around employers, but what I'll do, as with your being a training provider, I'll just basically drop information relevant to yourselves, but just so you've got like a bit of a holistic view of the whole funding. So my name's Alex McClymon. I'm the CITB Engagement Advisor for Derbyshire, and I wanted to speak to you today about CITB's new initiative of the Employer Network. People still saying they can't see.
I don't know.
Think it's worth me stop sharing and then try again, just in case.
Oh, yeah, it might be worse, so Alex, thanks. But like I say, I think, is there anyone else that can't see?
I'll try again. The slides will be available after the webinar anyway, so if you do want a copy of them, it's not a problem. Okay.
Yeah, I can see that fine, Alex. Thank you.
Right, okay. Like I say, they'll be available if not. Yeah, we'll open the floor to Q&As at the end, but if you're anything like myself, if you think of a question as we go throughout, please pop it in the chat and we'll address it at the end. So, CITB Employer Network, just a bit of a background regarding the employer networks. They're not new, they've actually been piloted since around 2022. And these were managed externally in the main by training groups or sector-specific networks such as HAE, Plant and Tool Hire and Seeker. So some of you may already have potentially experienced them, but now the external ones have gone and CITB is managing it internally. Now, these pilots, although they did fund like e-learning courses and some non-grant eligible training, some did seem very network led. And what I mean by this is they would have a list of training courses, and if a particular employer was part of that sector and a member to that external group, they could go on those courses free of charge. So, for example, they had a SMSTS course on specific dates, and if somebody wanted to jump on that course, that's fine, they could do free of charge. So that's good if you need an SMSTS course, but if you can't obviously make those dates work, then it's no good to you. So the idea of our employer networks are really focused on providing support for our employers and their training needs. So it's about making it as simple and easy as possible for them to access training without having to worry about applying for grants or funding, getting confused by the current systems we've got. So like I say, now with all the pilots ending, and CITB is managing them, we've rolled out and managed our own internally. So, like I said, a few words from our CEO Tim Balkan. The aim of the employer network, like I say, is to really simplify the way that CITB supports employers and training providers with accessing funding to do training that employers need to do. Okay, so the training could be anything that supports construction employers. It could be trade skills to satisfy immediate needs, or it could be something that's needed in the future, such as net zero, digital skills, something like that. So the philosophy is really to put the employer at the centre of making decisions about how funding is used and on what training it should be spent on. So what is the employer network? Well, our employer networks are quite simple. They're employer-led. We want to know what employers need to do, and then we'll look at funding it. Okay. It covers all grant eligible training, but we also look at non-grant eligible training as well. So if you deliver anything that's not currently funded through the grant system, if an employer requests it, and it's obviously construction related, we will look at funding it. Okay. So what are the benefits for the employer? So there's no application forms. They don't have to apply for like skills and training that's currently in place. They don't have to do applications. We won't ask them to do any booking forms. There's no grants attached to it because the full cost of the course is paid up front. CITB will pay 70% and the employer will contribute 30%. So as a training provider, if an employer wants to book on one of your courses, we always ask them if they've got a preferred training provider. So as long as you make sure they put that on their request, then obviously we'll come to you every time. We'll ask you to invoice the CITB 70%, and then a separate invoice to the employer for 30%. So it kind of hopefully there's no confusion there. It's a lot simpler process. So to give you an idea of the sort of courses that have been funded through the employer network, I've listed some that I've personally organised for my employers. Now, because the employer network is employer-led, like I say, we do need to know what they need to do as a business. So, fortunately, there's no list that we can hand out of things that have been put through the network. It's a case of the employer asks, we review it, and we give them a yes or a no. Okay. Main reason because if it's non-grant eligible training, if we look at the sort of training courses, we can see there's obviously a lot of UKATA courses, there's obviously future skills like net zero, but there's a lot of common courses such as like first aid. Okay. And just to give you an example of how it looks financially for the employer, it is a better model than the current grant system. Now, we're obviously aware that there's certain courses like the asbestos awareness where the grant outweighs the cost of the course, especially if you do like an e-learning course. But as a whole, the employer network is a better model and it is cheaper for the employer to book through. So a few examples there, obviously asbestos non-licensed. So I've just pulled some rough costs there. If it's booked through the normal grant system, the cost is 190, the £60 grant attached to it. The end cost for the employer is £130. If they booked it through the employer network, again, £190 cost. The employer network will fund 70%, which is £133, means the employer only has to pay £57. Okay. So the booking process for an employer, it's really quite simple. We'll ask them to complete a commitment statement, which just basically states that CITB will fund the course at 70%, and the employer themselves has a 30% contribution. And because CITB don't deliver the training ourselves, it's done through you guys, third-party training providers. The standard T's and C's apply. So if they were to try and cancel last minute or not attend, then full costs do occur. But from a training provider point of view, we'll pay the 70% anyway. So from an employer point of view, we'll ask them to sign a commitment statement. Once we've got the commitment statement back, we'll do our internal checks just to make sure there's no barriers, such as the levy returns up to date, any levy payments, and they're not on the barred list, the skills and training. We'll identify what training they need. Now, this is something that you could do as training providers as well. You can help them identify any training needs as to what you deliver. And then they'll send the training request through to their local CITB advisor. And from there, we'll book it internally. So what I always say is, from an employer point of view, we're their internal booking team. From a training provider point of view, we are just another client of yours. So the employer sends the training request. We'll send it through to our internal booking team, who will liaise with you, the training provider, to book the course. And then you will just invoice the ITB the 70% and invoice the employer 30%. And from there, the employer just attends the course and it's done. So that's it with the presentation. I'll open the floor to any questions anybody might have. There's a few in the chat.
Well, thanks, Alex. I'm just having a look. So yeah, please, anyone any questions, use the Q&A box and we can assist from there.
Like I say, I will give the slides as well. But if anybody wants to speak, if they're not aware, so within CITB, each region's got their own CITB advisor, and that's not just for employers, but that's for training providers as well. So obviously I cover Derbyshire, but if there's any of you in obviously other areas and you want to liaise with your local advisor, just let me know. Just send me an email. My contact details are on the screen. Just send me an email and I'll introduce you to your local advisor who can discuss it more and work with you on promoting courses.
Brilliant. Thanks, Alex. That's really helpful. I think we have got a question in the chat.
Adam, when are the EM bookings taking on more staff? As at present, they have. Yeah, so it has gone busy. So we are constantly recruiting for that team. But we've got the infrastructure where there's other departments and other team members that are currently jumping on to deal with the obviously influx of bookings. So the SLA time is 10 days of a booking for non-urgent. We categorize them in non-urgent and urgent. So anything within the next couple of weeks is urgent. Anything after that is non-urgent. The SLA for urgent is 3 days, non-urgent is 10 days. But we've got all the network lead team members helping out as well.
Well, thanks. So yeah, the questions are coming in now on the Q&A. Fabulous. Thanks, everyone.
Graham, so I noticed MVQs on your list. If an employer goes down this route, I'm presuming they cannot claim achievement grant. That's correct. So because the full cost of the training is covered up front through the 17 and 30, there's no completion grant. So what we ask for the training providers to do is anything that comes through the employer network, don't claim the completion grant. Something that's just been announced recently as well, that's not on the webinar because it is new. Certain courses we've looked at and the employer network are happy to fund them 100% from now until the end of March. So any net zero, retro skills, green skills, digital skills, we will look at funding at 100%. Okay, again, it's employer led. So we need to know what they need to do. We haven't got a list of training courses. It's anything that they've looked at or they've come across that they want to do. They send it over to the local advisor and we can look at funding it. And that actually does include, it's also leadership and management courses. And it is also MVQs from level 3 supervisor up to level 7 senior manager. So we'll fund those at 100%. The courses have got to be booked and delivered before the 31st of March, but MVQs obviously we know they take longer. So as long as it's booked before that date, we can fund it. Did we have a hand up?
So I think in the Q&A, well, there is quite a few here, Alex. So there's a question from
Oh,
Gareth
sorry, I'm in the
Jones.
chat.
It says, I know it gets confusing, doesn't it? So we do have a question from Gareth Jones, and he is asking if a contractor signs 10 delegates onto a course and pays 30%, and then 5 turn up to the will CITB still pay 70% for 10?
I suppose it all depends on the course. If the course is charged a per person course, or if it's a dedicated course, you just quote for up to 10 people to attend, and you just quote a set price. We do after course checks where we check to see if there's been any non-attendance. But I suppose if it's a course where um, it's the price is based on who attends. So you've quoted a price for a specific amount of people, or if it's again like an asbestos awareness course where it's up to X amount of people and this is the set price. So it all depends on the type of course that's booked. But yeah, if people don't attend, we do check that. But and obviously we'll try and claw it back from the employer, but it depends on the course.
Well, thank you. Rosie's asking, what are CITB's payment terms on the receipt of an invoice, please?
So with the training providers, we'll pay within 30 days of the first day of the course, but we do weekly payment runs. So I've been advised that it never takes that long. So we'll pay the 70% within that, but we advise employers to pay the 30% before the start of the course.
Well, thanks, Alex. Okay, so a question from Dan. Can training providers assist with the booking process, such as employers might be busy on site?
So it does have to come from the employer. It has to come from the employer to their local advisor. That's how the booking's processed, and it's how we cover how we can pay the 70%. There's nothing stopping you though promoting this employer network, promoting your courses, and identifying a training need for the employer for your courses. Once you've arranged that with the employer, just get the employer to send the information to the local advisor and get it booked. If you're not already part of the employer network, you do have to sign up to it. It's free to do as a training provider, but we have to do that process before the employer can use you. If you are an approved training organisation of the CITB, if an employer says they want to book a certain course with a specific training provider, we'll book it with that training provider as long as they're part of the network. If an employer asks for a training course, but they haven't got a training provider, obviously if they're new to training or they're not aware of who delivers it in the area, we've got something internally called fair usage policy. So if you're an ATO and you deliver the course that they're after, we will proactively approach you and get them on your course.
Well, thank you. Let's have a look. Emma wants to know, do you have any materials that we can use to advertise the fact that we can offer this?
Yeah, so each region has its own network. So we do have material, but it's specific to an area. So if you just drop me an email after this, email's on the screen, and just let me know what area you're in. Like I say, I'll introduce you to your local advisor, and they'll send you all the material that they've got to promote in their area, because the employer networks are to support employers and training providers in that area. So obviously I'll help connect my Derbyshire employers with Derbyshire training providers. Obviously if they're working in different areas, we'll liaise internally to be able to source that training if they're working in different areas. But yeah, if you're better off speaking to your local advisor first. But we can make that happen, it's not a problem. There's plenty of
Yeah,
material,
I was
and we've got
thinking,
links.
Alex. Sorry, Alex. With obviously because you've got advisors in each locations. What I can do, I can get that information from you, and I can email everyone,
Yeah,
and that might just save a job, and then make it a bit easier for everyone.
yeah, that's fine.
Well, let's have a look what we've got question wise. Alison, she wants to know, do we invoice the ITB after the course?
Yeah, so just you can invoice the ITB as soon as you've received the booking. It's not a problem. But like I say, we'll pay the 70% within 30 days of the first day of the course.
Well, thank you.
I've just put in the chat as well a link to our website where you can actually search for your local advisor.
Well, oh, sorry, I missed Gareth out on this bit. So Gareth wants to know if a client books onto a course that's run at last minute, are they restrictively claim? I don't know if you can see that in the Q&A.
Q&A, Gareth. If a
Gareth
client
Jones,
books
about 8
onto the
minutes
course
ago.
that run out last minute, are they restrictively claim? I'm not sure what that means, to be honest with you.
We can always come back. Gareth, if you want to drop me an email, then we can look into that after the webinar, if that might be helpful. Okay, we have Louise. So this is a bit of a lengthy one, Alex, and I don't want to go too fast for you. So, hi, we are both an employer and training provider, currently working for the local authority. We have departments that work in the construction sector. They currently come to us for some but not all training, first aid, IOSH, working at heights, asbestos and manual handling, etc. Health and safety division training within the local authority. As the payment is internal, will there be any help towards the cost of training for these employees, or would this not be permitted?
As long as they're levy registered, as long as the employer is levy registered, all the courses that you've listed are currently being put through the employer network. So I can't see an issue with that.
Fabulous. Okay, so Emma, in regards to the invoice, I've been asked by the CITB not to send the invoice until the training start date. Our terms are payment before training commences. Are we within our rights to hold the certificates for the training until it has been paid by both parties?
Yeah, that's fine. That's standard practice for training providers, 100%. But I've never known of an invoice not get paid. I think there was one issue that I was aware of, but that got sorted. So yeah, by all means, keep the receipts, keep the invoices until you're happy. You receive full payment.
Okay, so a question from Rosie. If we're in the contract with a company who has gone through a tender process and they currently use the scheme to claim back funds, will they now need to go through CITB even though they have gone through a tender process?
Yeah, so for any courses that are booked through the employer network, it has to go through CITB. It's how we pay the 70%. So they just have to send the information to the advisor, and then we can obviously put it through the right channels.
Real. Okay. So Gareth is asking, can multiple employers be put on the same order number? Or if I have 3 employers on a course, do I send 3 different invoices to the CITB?
No, I believe you can put that on. I believe you can put that on one invoice. So the way it'll work with the invoicing is, I believe we send a PO. We send a PO with a certain value to it. And when somebody books through the employer network, you would use that PO number when invoicing CITB. So yeah, I don't see why you can't put it on one.
Fabulous. I'm just having a quick look to see if I've missed anyone. I don't think I have. That's on the Q&A, so I'm just going to have a look in the chat if there's any more in the chat. You answered some of these, Alex, didn't you? Let's have a look.
Yeah. I think Douglas, where are we? I've answered Graham's. Do the courses have to be completed by the end of March or just booked? So Adam Jones, do the courses have to be completed by the end of March or just booked? So the courses do have to be booked and completed by the end of March. If it's like I say, if it's MVQs, obviously they do take longer. So we're happy those just being booked before the end of March to qualify for the 100%. So there is a cap on the employer network for an employer, and it's £25,000 per annum, running April to April. So obviously, if there's a 100% incentive, that'll have no impact on the cap. So if they've hit the cap already, they can still access this 100%. Curtin, is this available across all the UK? Yeah, all the UK. Each region, all regions, well, England, Scotland, and Wales. Each region has got its own advisor, so that's who you'd liaise with to access it. As an employer, but as a training provider, that's who you'd liaise with to get involved and get more information.
Wow.
Another one from Adam. For info, we have received a number of bookings through the EN and generally receive payment within 2 weeks. Yeah. So I think we've got an SLA of 30 days, but like I say, we do weekly payment runs. So I believe it would be rare for it to go that long. Adam's got another one. You mentioned 70-30 funding. My understanding is that this may change depending on how the region's EN steering groups decide, so may change to 60-40, 50-50. Yeah, so steering groups is not something I've touched on. So each region, as part of the employer network, will have a steering group, and that steering group will consist of a number of employers. So from industry, sorry, of different sectors, different sizes, and they will have quarterly meetings to discuss funding in that particular region. So they will try. I think in Derbyshire we've had 3 meetings now, and what we're trying to do is identify skills gaps, okay, and also identify if there is certain high demand courses and how we can use the funding. So yeah, like Adam says, if we can do it on a different sort of split, or this incentive that's running at the moment for 100%. I believe that came from the feedback of steering group meetings where we tried to identify a skills gap, which is quite a challenge. What we tried to do, because it's all about future training, yeah, fair enough, you've got your bread and butter courses that you need to do, but things that we've identified as skill gaps, such as leadership and management and net zero, that's a big one that's coming that's going to affect everybody. That general feedback is not a lot of people know about it, and are aware about it and what training they need to do and how to prepare for it. So there's kind of a bit of a focus at the moment. But yeah, the steering groups do direct that. So that's a good question.
Wow. I think Gareth might have clarified his question in the Q&A, Alex. Let's have a look.
In the Q&A.
Right at the top.
I can see one from 15 minutes ago.
Let's have a look. Okay, so 3 minutes ago, so yeah, Gareth's clarified his question. If a client books onto a course that's run at the last minute and they respectively claim, is that part of another question? Can they retrospectively claim? Can't talk today, it's Monday.
Respectively.
Retrospectively.
Claim funding for it. If a client books onto a course that's running at the last minute. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter when the course is running. If the employer gives us a couple of days notice, if it's a course that they need to go on, we've got the infrastructure to support that. So we just put it as a high priority booking, if that's what you mean. We can book, we like to book no more than 3 months in advance. But we understand everybody does training differently. All the employers do different training differently. So some are quite aware of what training they need, so they can predict quite a bit of training and they're quite on top of it. Other one, it's quite reactive, so it's just basically as and when's needed. So yeah, part of that is last minute training. So if an employer does come to us and they're part of the network and there's no barriers in place and they need a booking last minute, it's something that we can accommodate and support with. I hope that answers the question.
And if not, Alex, like I say, I will be emailing everyone with our email addresses, and obviously we can extend that support after the webinar with yourself, and I can redirect where necessary. Fabulous. So let's just double check we've answered all the questions. I think under that one there is one from Dan. Let me see if I can find it. If employees engage in training prior to authorization of fund request, can the training be retrospectively claimed?
Oh, what? Okay, so if they booked it and paid for it, I'm guessing you mean there, Dan.
I think
If
so.
employees engage in training before from requests. So with the employee network, I hope I answered this one right, but please, obviously comment or come off mute and have a chat. Yeah, so if an employer's booked it, unless they've got a relationship with a training provider where the training provider has to cancel it and then put it through the employee network, it's the employee network's for future training. So if they've already booked it and they're about to attend, we can't. It's not like the current grant system. We can't reimburse them through the employee network. Unfortunately, it has to be booked through the advisor and through the right chains for us to fund it at 70%. But like if they booked a course for say like in a month's time, and then they're made aware of the employee network and that course we can fund it at 70%. So like if it's non-grant eligible, like first aid or something, if they've got that relationship with the training provider or if they're able to cancel it and then rebook it through the employee network, we've done that before, so that's not a problem.
There's always a way, eh?
Always a way.
Okay, so a few more questions, Alex. So when did the 100% funding start?
So that initiative came into play at the end of January, so very recent. We didn't have much notice on that one, so we've rolled out communication. We've rolled it out in a certain way because it has to be employer led. So we've had a bit of back and forth on the sort of comms that have gone out, but they have gone out to employers. Advisors are promoting it. But yeah, it started back in about a week and a half ago. So it is new.
Well, let's have a look. Okay, so when does the new process come into effect and they can no longer use the current scheme with the get codes, please?
The grant system, there's been no communication to say anything like that, anything with the grant system's changing. This is just an additional pot of funding that the employers can access. So they've currently got access to, I suppose, three different ways when they look at training. So you've got skills and training, which is for grant eligible training, and it funds it 100% through an application process. You've got the current grant system if you just book a training course and get a claim grant back, and you've got the employer network as well.
Fabulous. Okay, a few more. So as a training provider, other than invoicing, is there any more admin involved? Is there anything else we need to do to satisfy the CITB for the funding?
No, so if you're not part of the employer network as it stands, we just ask basic information from you. So if you're a non-ATO, okay, we are working with non-ATO, so we'll just ask for standard information, basically. Company details, point of contact details, what training you cover and where, and obviously bank details. If you are an ATO, we ask for all that information. Plus, we ask you to sign a supplementary agreement, which again just states that CITB will fund it 70% and the employer 30%. We're trying to simplify the whole process. We want to make it a good journey for employers and training providers. So if you're currently an ATO, they were quite happy to hear that the grant system wasn't part of this. So you don't have to do that. So that's less paperwork. Like I say, from a training provider point of view, you just got to think of us as another employer. I suppose the only additional admin is the split of the invoices, which has been an issue for some training providers, but not all. Like I say, you just invoice us at 70% and the employer 30%. But regarding paperwork, no, nothing extra.
Good to know. Thank you. Okay, and I think this might be the last one, but like I said, there is time if you still want to ask questions. So Emma wants to know, how long is the employer network scheme going to be running for?
It's here to stay. We've done all the pilots, we've got all the feedback. It's definitely the more favourable for the employers. It's such an easier process. If anybody's aware of the skills and training, and been involved in that to help maybe employers. It's a very confusing and time-consuming process of how it works. It's good because obviously it's 100%, but there is a process to it. So this is designed to simplify, and this has been built on the back of the feedback from the skills and training as well. And like I say, it's just designed to be simpler, a simpler process for everybody. So yeah, it's here to stay.
Brill. Is there more funding available from the 1st of April?
Not that we're aware of. Again, this was currently just an incentive to help people focus on like net zero, leadership and management, things that have been identified as a potential skills gap from local steering groups. But there may be. We've just not had comms of anything like that yet.
Okay. I think there's a question in the chat from Adam. From employers' point of view, how do they get the value for money on training, such as what decides if the EN book a course with the provider 1 who charges £250 or the provider 2 who charges £200? I understand the employer can specify a provider. However, if they just contact you for a course, how do they get the value for money?
So the pilots have been going for a long time, and obviously we're aware of market price of courses. So yeah, you're right. If there's a certain course that's £500 and somebody's charging £800 for it, we just won't use that provider. We'll make them aware. We'll let them know that everybody else is £500, you're £800. Unless you can come down on price, we can't work with you because there's other providers that are cheaper. And very good point what you make. So an employer's got a 25 grand cap. We want to work with them as best as possible to get as much training out of that 25 grand cap as possible. If they're overpaying for courses, it's not a good use of the funding. So we do identify that. We've come across it a lot, and it is something we're working on.
Brill, thank you. I'm just going to flip back to Q&A, see if there's anything there. I think we've answered everything, Alex. Double check the chat. I think that is it for the Q&A.
Yeah,
I think so. Well, thank you everyone for your questions. Oh, no, I think we have got one.
I haven't got in there.
Okay,
so there's
on the chat.
not been a case of Ian booking 10 people on the specialist awareness course for a total of £6,000. Not that I'm aware of. That'd be crazy if it has, to be honest with you. If you're aware of that, by all means, please send me information. But I'm not aware of anything like that.
Okay. And like we say, our emails will be available there to contact either one of us. Thank you for that, Adam.
It's been fair. If anything like that happens, feedback. There are, where there's ever some sort of funding, there will always be somebody that want to take advantage of it. I feel that we're pretty good of catching it as early as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Some things might slip through the net. If they do, like I say, if you've come across it and you can feed it back, then brilliant.
Communication is the key.
Communication is the key.
Fabulous. Okay, so we've got another one from Gareth Jones. Does the 25k per contractor include levy funding?
Sorry, say that again.
So this is back on the Q&A chat box. So yeah, does the 25k per contractor include the levy funding?
If you mean levy funding as in the skills and training, because the levy is what an employer pays, grant and funding is what they can claim. So no, it's completely separate. I think you mean the skills and training there, but it's completely separate. So if you've got an employer, just to give you an idea of the sort of money they can claim. If you've got an employer that's below 50 directly employed, I think it works out, they can claim within a 12-month period just shy of £50,000 in funding. And that's not without any apprentices as well that they can claim separately. So there's quite a lot for them to access.
Brilliant. Okay. Just give it a couple of seconds, Alex, just in case anyone wants to get the last minute questions in.
Yep.
I think that's it. A big thank you to everyone that's asked the questions. That this is what these webinars are for. I will be sending a recording out of this webinar. I will email it all to you directly. Anyone that doesn't get the email, please just drop me an email. I can send that to you. So yeah, keep an eye on your inbox for that. Thank you so much, Alex. There was a lot of questions, a lot of information to digest. So a big thank you for your time today. And like we say, our emails will be floating about so we can have that maybe direct time. So that's it from us today. Just to make you aware that just stay connected with us for any future upcoming webinars. We do have one in February relating to ADR, and that's going to be delivered by Nina Day. But I'll add that information onto our email I'll be sending out. So yeah, once again, thank you everyone. Thanks for your questions. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you very much.
And I hope to see you all for future events. Have a lovely day, everyone.